So once again, the mood is down in Nigeria as the economy goes under for many people, with inflation and prices galloping and the security situation as worrying as ever, with more law enforcement agents killed and more civilians kidnapped. So why has Nigeria become so strikingly dangerous and unproductive? Should we blame poor quality education, corruption, mismanagement, ineptitude, nepotism, or ethnicity? Or a combination of all these? Well, tonight we'll attempt to analyze the social, political and economic costs of insecurity, poverty and low productivity, drawing attention to the structural causes even as the living standards of Nigerians continue to suffer. How can we make and implement better policies, end abysmal performance and recover the lost years? Well, from all this, I'm joined now in the studio by the presidential candidate of the Young Progressive Party, or YPP, Prince Malik Ado-Ibrahim. Great to see you again.
You too, Charles. Thank you.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
You've been traveling, and
yes.
so have I,
Yes,
to be fair. Is there something about all the developments this week and perhaps beyond in Nigeria that underlines or underscores to you how much tension there is in this country, either with regard to security or the economy, you know, the burial of murdered soldiers, the kidnapping and release of school children, the raising of interest rates to try and tame galloping inflation and a cost of living crisis?
Well, Charles, you know, I look at my country and I wonder, you know, why do we keep having this insanity? We talked about this during the election, that we are going to get to a point where a country without a plan is a country going nowhere. I was rather hopeful that this administration was going to come in and have a plan and we could see that plan being executed, but it's become more and more apparent that we are reactionary rather than proactive. And there's some 4 elements. I remember being ridiculed for my very simple manifesto, but those 4 pillars of what I call the Nigerian development have still not been addressed. Principally, the 4 structures are neglected. They haven't been in any way enhanced. And we see this with the security of the country, we see it with the economy, we see it with the joblessness, and we see it with this hopelessness that the country has. We haven't moved past it. And I can't really blame this present administration yet. I think it's too early to completely blame the president. He is my president. I am Nigerian, and I support the fact that us as Nigerians, we need to help him. He can't help himself always, but we have to do our part. But what we're seeing is a plan that hasn't been in any way explained to the Nigerian public. We don't see press conferences. We don't have a narrative from this administration. So where do we go? We're almost the blind leading the blind. And I wish and I would pray that my president would take this critique in a positive way and say, look, itemize, lay out your plan so Nigerians can see where you're going. Because the last administration did not do what it was supposed to do. To turn the ship around, maybe it'll take a year. But at least let people know that you know, you're on the operating table.
As likely to carry them along,
absolutely.
Isn't it?
I'm going to give you painkillers now, but you know, in the next 6 months, things will be okay. We haven't got to that stage yet. And I think we can analyze those 4 things today, and we can see, hopefully, give some insight into what other people might be thinking.
Right. Well, we'll try and take those things one after the other. But, I mean, having just returned to Nigeria yourself after a 4-month absence, does it look like there's trouble building down the road?
I think the problem has been built. We haven't been able to dismantle that problem. And that comes around when we look at things like security. Security for me is one of those things that you look at and you think, because we have soldiers, we have security. There's 200,000 odd men in the security forces of this country, of over 200 million people. Gallant soldiers. And I want to commend the president for what he did in showing that patriotism, that dispensation that he showed to those 16 men that lost their lives. But
17.
17, I beg your 16 plus their commander.
Right.
And I do believe that this should be a rallying cry for us to fix some of the things that we've talked about, again, you and I, in the past. We need to get back to the basics. Our soldiers, and the president came in and said he was going to have 1 million men. Where are they? Why aren't we seeing the recruitment? Mr. President, get back on that. That's one of the promises you made. Now, recruitment has to be done properly. Training has to be done properly. But more importantly, those 200,000 men deserve better equipment. We're still an AK-47 nation. I think we remember talking about that. We haven't been able to give our soldiers, our men in the service of the protection of this country, the right tools. And we need to realize that in order to be a better force than the enemy, you must have superior firepower, equipment. We have modern technology with like drones and unmanned aircraft and so many different things that I could go through that would take a lot of time. But we need to be able to refocus the attention on what is the security of this country. The army cannot be the police force. The police force also needs recruitment and better equipment. Then we have the civil defense. What are they doing? We leave so many gaps. We're in pockets of insecurity and we think that our cities are safe. Our cities are not safe. Our men are spread out too far. And we really need to get into a recruitment drive that allows Nigerians to say, you know what, I'm a patriot. I want a job to help secure this nation and give me an opportunity. So for me, the security element will not change until we focus on the elements that make our force protection for the soldiers. I mean, the gentlemen, again, my warmest condolences to their families, but they were not well equipped. We have thin-skinned vehicles like the police. The army should be in armored personnel carriers, fighting vehicles. We should have them escorted by force protection. Their bases need to be better protected. Their armor needs to be better. Let's spend that money now, because if we can't spend it later, we're finished. We need to have a review, an open review of who we are as a nation and what our security elements are. I'm not there to fight, but I can observe, and I have a certain peculiar expertise in looking at this. But I think we're ill-equipped for the fight at hand, and the enemy is within. And we need to figure out how to figure that one out.
And you made a very interesting point there when you said the military were doing the job of the police. The fact that the army at the once, for example, those people who were killed, I mean, it is murder within civil society. The fact that the military are the ones declaring people wanted and going out to harry and arrest citizens in a democracy and during civil rule when it ought to be the police, does that smack of a sort of jungle justice, as one observer pointed out in a chat group? Because you made a very interesting point about the need for proper training. I mean, that sort of thing is the job of the police, isn't it?
Well, you know, this is a
in a constitutional sort of democracy.
If you wrap it up under the flag of constitution, they were attacked. And that's an act of war as far as I'm concerned. We're in a war footing, and we keep trying to sugarcoat this. There is a war in this country that is silent. And our men, the soldiers, are out there fighting a war. But when the men in uniform are fraternizing with the civilians, that camaraderie, that ineffective superiority allows you to observe the soldiers and then be able to take advantage of them when you need to. As a false sense of security. Bases should be secure. There should be no interaction between the civilians and the men in the bases. Because once you do that, you go to buy rice, you take off your uniform, you invite them in, anything can happen. We are in a war footing, and we need to attack this problem with the proper decorum of a military footing. And remember, the soldiers are trained to kill. They don't ask you for your documents. You attack me and I'll attack you.
And it's kill or be killed, isn't
absolutely.
it? That's their motto.
And if you attack a military establishment, woe-betide you. I mean, I don't blame
Well,
them.
I was just going to say, perhaps more worrying, given what you were just saying, is that if you are fingered by the military and they decide that you are culpable in attacking them, I mean, you could well find yourself being hung, drawn, and quartered well before you get anywhere near a court of law.
And this is why we need
And that's
to be,
part of the problem with the training as well.
Absolutely. And then we have to be careful with another, I agree with what the West says, and it says that we are human rights violations because they violate humans everywhere around the world. But there's a particular footing that Nigeria is on that is very different. I think the only country that's similar to this is Turkey, where you have the KPP fighting the establishment, and we have
PKK.
PKK, I beg your pardon. But you also have to look at the broader spectrum of this. This is caused by a particular issue we have in this country, which is unemployment. I just don't see how anybody that's earning money will go strap himself or carry a rifle to go kill somebody. We have to address this in a fundamental way that allows government to realize these are our ills, we must fix them. But civilians attacking military, I mean, you wake a sleeping dog, you're going to get bit. And I have that unfortunate background to say that if you do unto me as a soldier, I will do unto you tenfold. And that is just the nature of the business. But again, if you have the audacity to attack a military establishment, hell's coming. And that's unfortunately what they're going to get. I mean, you can attack a police station, expect some things, but you attack the military, you're going to get something else. But again, a democracy, we are a kind of a democracy. There's no perfect democracy. Nigeria has to find itself. We have to have that conversation later down the road. But right now, the nation needs to be secure. We need
It doesn't really matter whether it's the police or the army, as long as you've got security. That's the point you're making.
Absolutely, but that security needs to be defined. What is the role of the military? The military should not be in the streets.
But also you have to try and work within the confines of the rule of law, or essentially you've got anarchy.
But that rule of law is to the civilian that's attacking you and to the military. So you do have this very contentious environment, especially in areas where there's oil and gas and theft and all these things. It's like the drug game. You know, in Mexico, the military do go and fight, and there is no Miranda right been read to you. You're in a drug war. We're in a oil theft war. We're in a war for the soul of Nigeria.
Yeah, but it almost sounds like what we're seeing in Gaza, for example. Hamas fighters go into Israel and kill 1,200 people or so, which is hideous, terrible thing to have happened. And the Israelis go in there with all the might they can muster and kill over 32,000 civilians. I mean, is that the sort of thing that we should be seeing in Nigeria, that you attack soldiers, which is a hideous thing to do, and then they go into the villages and basically raise those villages?
Well, thankfully, we're not in that Gaza type situation, and during this holy month of Ramadan, I can only say that my thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians also feel that is a very difficult situation, but it's on a different footing. Our problem in Nigeria right now is this idea that I'm above the law in certain communities. And they're also feeling that I'm carrying this weapon. I've got it from my neighboring country, or some foreign entity has given me a weapon, like has been, and it's true, it's happening. And they have superior firepower than our military. There is no doubt about it in my mind that we don't have a tooled up, ready to fight force for the age that we're in. And I would love a conversation with the chief of defense, the head of the military in Nigeria, and say, how do we create a superior force that is fighting at a completely different level? Because you need to respect the military. If you don't respect, you get that thinking, I know their tools, they only have an AK-47 and I have an M1 rifle, I'm coming after you. So we need to change and gain that respect for the police and the military. And we look at all these things like kidnapping, these pockets, this criminality. I mean, I've got to say, I'm so happy that we were able to bring these children back, because they do not deserve to be in that position. Similar to the Gaza situation, you see kids being taken on for political gain. But what we must do is try to find tools that allow there be visible countermeasures, forces that are sitting there. And I think that we may need to look at the interior defense of this country and look at the civil defense forces and increase that number too, so there's visible deterrent to anybody trying to cause any of these things. We just don't have enough men in the open spaces to be able to say it won't happen again. It will, unfortunately.
Well, you mentioned in the course of your analysis there the very crucial issue of unemployment and poverty and all the rest of it, which is tied to the economy. So let's turn to the economy. We saw the central bank raising interest rates to 24.75%, all in an attempt to try and reduce inflation. Is that the best way to do it? Because that is the textbook method, but you have to wonder whether it works in an enormously distorted economy such as we have in Nigeria.
Well, I'd like the idea that we're actually having some financial science, not what we had before, which was erratic and it just really was dysfunctional financial policy.
Yeah, but the truth is that if you look back over the last couple of years, it's been a systematic increase of interest rates, and inflation has just continued to grow.
Because the fundamentals are not there for the economy to work in the right way. Inflation will happen. And the key element when you look at this is that we don't produce anything for sale. We don't produce anything for export. We don't receive any kind of value for what we do in this country. And it's because we're not industrialized. Anybody living in Abuja today, or nationwide actually now, there's no power. You can't run your business, you can't run your home, you can't run your hospitals. It's economically impossible to be profitable. Part of this issue of inflation is power. And if anyone is not looking at this in the science of statecraft, you cannot build a nation in the Stone Age. We're past that. We're in a modern age where look, we have a country that has one grid. Imagine a person with one spine and it's broken. It's a dead body. We don't have any alternative to the grid we have. And there's modern tools that are available to create industrial parks, to create value, to create exportable products, to create the agro-allied system that we've been talking about for the last 20 years.
Of course, you're involved in solar energy, aren't you?
Absolutely. I can speak about it because it's my expertise. What we're not doing is looking at what everybody else is doing internationally. If I was the president of this country, I would do everything possible, including going to coal, including, I have everything at my disposal, and I would raise this country based on an industrial footing that I would like to see. And I'd have to lead that by example, because we cannot keep having this kind of, it's a grid, it will work, it does not work. It's a spine that's broken. We have one national grid. Most countries have 5 or 6. If one goes down, you can push that onto the other. We have nothing. And we have power that's not produced. We're dependent on gas. If gas falls, we have nothing to go on. If we have a dry season, there's no water. We don't have an energy mix that makes this country work economically. So we're stuck. We're having to use jungle economics to be able to make an industrial nation work. We have companies that work here but cannot export products. We have inefficient infrastructure, so we can't move goods. We need a Marshall Plan for industrialization. And we have an economic team that's just been put together. There is not one economist on that economic team. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to come back with the same result. I love my country, but I'm not here to criticize my government, my president, those that are running this country, but they need to listen. They need to have other ideas other than this. I'm going to do it the same way we've been doing it for the last 20 or 30 years.
And of course, a key element in all of that is politics, because you've got to get the politics right in order to then get the policies right. So let's turn to politics. Here we are in 2024, looking over the political horizon at 2027. What pattern are we in now, with the country mired in economic crisis, Nigerians still feeling the bruising consequences of 2023? You took part in that election as a presidential candidate. Is the country in a different kind of political moment, or is it still in the throes of a seismic shift, and the tsunami is still building towards a later climax, either ahead of 2027 or in 2027?
We're in a car that is about to have an accident, as far as I'm concerned. The only way to help this car is to either try to get some word to the driver that we've missed, the GPS isn't working, we're going the wrong direction, or wait till 2027, hoping the country is awake and they look at modern leadership. We're in the Stone Age. We're not looking at this thing from...
but you're a politician. I'm trying to get your sense of... there's a lot of talk about, issues such as political realignments and so on. The mega merger of opposition parties. I take the points that you're making, that you're giving us the analysis of the problem.
Yes,
but in terms of a way of finding a solution, are you cautious about whether a mega merger might be a solution? Because we've seen the APC in power since 2015, and clearly, even though you're not being direct, you are criticizing the APC. They've been in power ever since.
Yeah.
So, the alternative is what I'm saying. You're a politician, you're an opposition politician.
Yes.
What are the alternatives that you're thinking about? Is the mega merger of opposition parties on the cards? And if it is, what consequences might there be, and what impact might it have?
Well, if we take the possible mergers that could happen in a mega party, to me, it just can't happen. The individuals, the egos, the personalities are not one to back down, to align themselves. There's no clear ideology.
So you're not, with your party, the YPP, you're a presidential candidate, you're not really in the mix as far as a potential merger is concerned.
No, because first of all, in my mind, it's a waste of time. We, as an opposition, should be in opposition to this administration, talking on shows like this and telling us, the truth as we see it. There's no one panacea for the problems of Nigeria, but let's give issues. Where is this mega party? Where are these individuals? Where are they, in Dubai or in Egypt or whatever they are? They're not talking. They can criticize.
Well, they claim they're talking.
But sir,
maybe they're not talking to you.
They're not talking to the nation. And just as the present administration is not talking to the nation either. Winner takes all. But we, the young people of this country that are in politics, are now saying, enough, we need to speak up. We cannot sit in that car and let it have that accident. We want to get into the driver's seat. It's a modern car with the shifters on the steering instead of the gearbox. We need to be able to tool our country differently. Retool Nigeria has to be the way we go forward. And the only way we're going to do that is by parties having ideology. There is no ideology. They've cross-carpeted so many times there's a stain on the carpet. Now, who's going to proffer real opposition with facts, with eloquence, with a sense of direction? We don't have that at the moment. So a mega party with who at the helm? We know the usual suspects. There are too many egos in there. One that came second, the other came third, one that came fourth. Who's going to come first? No. We saw what happened in Senegal. Let's not be, when Nigeria's youth decides it's going to be a environment in politics, we will see change. But as long as we're
I thought
sleeping,
they made that decision in 2023.
No, they didn't. They spoke a lot, they did a lot, but they didn't turn up. They did not turn up. And the parties were so segmented. If they had come together then, we would have seen a result. But even the leader that came second couldn't even put his party together. I don't understand the political atmosphere in Nigeria at the moment, because for me it is dismissive. They've all gone away to come back in 3 years' time to fight this administration. That's not what we need. We need all hands on deck. We need to critique so that they can improve. And if you don't critique, the man in there thinks, I'm doing okay. There's no countermeasures to me. So as far as I'm concerned, as a member of the YPP, we're not sitting here being quiet. I believe that the youth of this country needs to speak its wishes. Who are we? What do we want to be? I don't have an identity as a Nigerian. I love my country, but who are we? We've lost our foreign policy. Niger, Mali, all these countries leaving ECOWAS while we were the founders of ECOWAS, and we're having the chairman's seat, and we're having no say. We're going to attack you today, no, we're not tomorrow. We cannot have this policy of reaction rather than one of, we need one that shows that lion of Africa that we keep, we're not a good for nothing. We need to have a definitive policy, who we are as Nigerians, and it's up to this president to bring us all together. And I'm not asking, not wanting to join parties, I'm not asking about that. Let's have a dialogue. What do we want to be? How do we pitch in to help this country? This country falling down and another party think it's going to resurrect it is asinine. It's madness.
So what about the radical, I mean, I don't know if I should say radical, but the other side of it, which is people talking about fundamental constitutional reform ahead of these things that you're talking about, to the extent that you have a form of restructuring. They're talking about dusting off the 2014 National Conference report and implementing that as a way of giving people a sense of inclusiveness, and then you move on from there, because then you've got the right constitutional setting to move forward in this country.
With all due respect, if we're looking at that and we think this constitutional conversation is going to happen at the National Assembly, of all the places that gives Nigeria a pause at the moment, it is that body. If we even got those things working, maybe this problem would not be there. We are witnessing claims of corruption and theft and all kinds of oddities in what is the people's house. Well, of course the Constitution doesn't work because the people holding the Constitution aren't working. And we're sitting there pretending as if we have a country that works. We don't. And we must realize that, well, winner takes all. So yes, you can move it and say whatever you want, and no, there is no punitive measure to that. So I can sit here and say everything I want to say, it's not going to do anything. A constitutional conversation cannot be had until we actually get the one we have to work. And in order for that to work, the people that we elect must be people who can make that constitution work. Not give money to projects because it's in my state, not give money to projects because I like that person. What is Nigeria? What is it? What must it do to get itself off its knees? The governors are culpable. We have a policy for agriculture that's not working. We have power that doesn't work. We have insecurity. We're not sitting there calling these people in and having a dialogue. What do you need to fix the problem? We have a lot of people saying, there's a problem. Where are the solutions? And those that can make those solutions don't have at least the measure of being able to talk to power. And when you cannot talk to power, power is absolute. It doesn't have countermeasures.
That's a good point. Are you planning to run again for president in 2027?
Nigeria deserves young leadership. I don't know if I have the mantle.
After the bruising experience of 2023.
2023 was a learning experience, and I hope a learning experience for a lot of young people in Nigeria. We can make a difference. We must be heard. We have exceptional, the president met with Ogulesi a few days ago. The biggest deal that was done globally was headed by a Nigerian. I just love that. The biggest company in the world went to a Nigerian, bought his company, brought him into that company because he has something. And there are many Nigerians that have that something. What we need to do is find out who they are, bring them into areas like politics, like farming, like security, and let them shine. But the enabling environment must be there. We're a reflection of our leadership. If we have older leadership, we're going to have older things to deal with. If we have a younger leadership, we'll have modern things to deal with. And I'm going to be visible in politics as much as I can. I'd like to give young people, my peers and younger, something to aspire to be. We cannot keep having that mental state of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the result. We didn't have a debate in the last one. Nobody knows what's anybody's mind. Nigeria needs to change its political will so that we can change the will of this country. We're working on sentiment rather than reality. And unless we have shows like this that people can come on and speak, our words can never get out. We're dumbed down, and because the winner takes all. They lead the way, and we have no analysis. We can't.
Well, now you thoroughly depressed me. I was going to say, but very good points that you make there, and I want to thank you very much indeed for coming in. And obviously, you're welcome to come back again.
Thank you, sir.
Prince Malik Ado-Ibrahim is the presidential candidate of the Young Progressive Party, or YPP. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Charles. Pleasure.